4th and 22. We're on our own 22-yard line. What we're going to do, it's time to send for the punt team. Hello, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving, happy Black Friday, happy festive season, happy whatever you celebrate, and welcome to the punt team. I'm Andrew Wilsher, and I'm joined by my NFL betting analyst co-host, Luke Lindholm. Luke, how are you doing today?
Great. Ready to finish out the workday and then prepare for some turkey, some beer, and football all day tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely love it. It truly is the most wonderful time of the year, and things are certainly starting to heat up in the NFL. We're now into week 13, so really starting to come down the stretch now. Games mean more and more as teams jockey for playoff and wildcard positioning, and it's really starting to get quite congested, especially in the NFC. Unbelievably, you have teams at 7-4, like that are still on the outside looking in. The NFC is so congested. Luke, what are your thoughts with what's going on there?
Yeah, the NFC is going to be an interesting one to watch, especially that wild card spot. I mean, we're likely going to see the Lions or the Packers fall in at that 7 seed, which is just insane to me how good the Bears have been playing. They obviously picked up another win last week against the Steelers, and that's really going to be interesting to me. But obviously, I have my eyes on the AFC right now. Patriots number 1 seed as it stands, but honestly, that's not going to be. I mean, that's going to be key because if you have that 2 seed, you're probably going to get the Buffalo Bills or the Kansas City Chiefs in that first round of the playoffs. So I'm hoping the Pats can just keep things rolling and secure that first round bye.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy what we're seeing in the AFC. You would have to expect that the Ravens come through and win the NFC North now, but for a while it was looking like the Bills, Chiefs, and Ravens were all going to be wildcard teams, which is absolutely crazy. But we saw Mahomes dial it up. The Chiefs secured a massive win in overtime to keep their postseason hopes alive. But what about that AFC South as well? The Colts obviously losing that game, but now they suddenly have the Jags and the Texans hot on their heels. Do you think that the Colts can carry it through, or will they be caught?
I think it's going to be interesting this week. I think the Colts could struggle against this Texans D. I mean, we saw them against Josh Allen, 8 sacks last week. That's not going to be a joke. In the Jaguars' schedule, I know we'll have that big head-to-head on December 7th between Jacksonville and Indianapolis. But other than that, the Jags get the Titans twice, the Jets again, and they play the Colts again in December. So really that AFC South is wide open, and I do think Jacksonville can overtake Indianapolis when everything's said and done. But it's going to be one to watch as the weeks come down.
Absolutely. And we now have the Rams as clear favorites to win the Super Bowl after they beat the Buccaneers. But we also saw the Eagles have a spectacular collapse against the Cowboys. They led 21-0 at halftime. I was paid out. I had a 2-leg parlay on the Chiefs and Eagles to win, and Bet365 paid me out with the Eagles 17 points ahead. So I was home and host. Thankfully, I didn't have to suffer through that tremendous comeback from the Cowboys. But yeah, Rams now hot favorites for the Super Bowl. Do you think that they are now the team to beat?
Man, I think so. The way they played against Tampa Bay on Sunday night too, the defense is what's really impressed me right now. I mean, obviously, if you get inside the 10-yard line, you can expect Matthew Stafford to throw a fade to Devontae Adams. That's an automatic touchdown. But the way they just got pressure on Baker Mayfield and disrupted that passing game, I think they're going to be an issue, and they're the rightful favorites. And that brings me to the point. Are you taking any bite on the Buccaneers now, sitting around 50-1 to win the Super Bowl? I know Baker had that injury, but he might even play this week, and it's not as severe as originally thought. So you taking any stab on your Buccaneers right now?
I don't think so. I was thinking about this, and I think it's actually been a low-key bad season for the Bucs. They obviously still have a pretty decent record, and looking at their remaining games, they should still be able to coast to an NFC South title, but they haven't been convincing at all. They've won a lot of narrow games and just downright looked bad at certain points. I know that they're obviously dealing with injuries. It seems like Bucky Irving's never going to come back. He's always going to be on the cusp every week, whereas we also have Mike Evans out for the year. So I am just about getting off the Buccaneers hype train, unfortunately. One bet I did lock in the other day, actually, which it would be good to get your thoughts on. I actually backed the 49ers to win the Super Bowl at 33-1. They're still firmly in a wildcard position, and it looks like they're going to be in a wildcard battle. I accept that they're in a very tough NFC West division, and they are highly unlikely to finish ahead of the Rams or the Seahawks. But their offense is really starting to impress me. Like Brock Purdy aside, I'm not a believer in Purdy at all, but the fact that they still have weapons like McCaffrey, like Kittle, I still think there's a glimmer there that they can battle through and ride their way to an NFC championship game and potentially beyond. I just thought 33-1 was a little bit too high for me. I was expecting to see 20 to 25-1. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the 49ers, especially after that 29 win over the Panthers on Monday night?
Yeah, I was really impressed with their defense. I mean, I can't believe with all the injuries they've had, but Robert Salah, he had that young defense flying against Bryce Young, and Panthers really struggled in that game. And I honestly, yeah, I don't hate the path there. It really depends. I think, like the AFC, that sixth seed is going to be kind of key. It depends what happens in the NFC North. I think the Lions, the Packers, the Bears, they could beat up on one another. But if the Bears end up winning that NFC North and the 49ers have to go to Chicago in that first round, I would love them in that game. So,
Yeah.
yeah, at 33-1, they're definitely one of the teams that's sitting on the outside that I don't hate taking a stab at. I mean, I still can't believe the Chiefs have the shortest odds to win the Super Bowl from the AFC right now. It's bonkers to me. And honestly, we'll see what they can do in Dallas this week, but a playoff spot isn't even a sure thing for them still.
Absolutely, absolutely. But then getting into our first Sunday game of the 6 p.m. slate is two other AFC teams that are battling it out. We've got the Texans going to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. The Texans have really started to turn things around. They're 6-5 now. They're only 2 wins behind the Colts. So a victory over Indianapolis here, and suddenly that AFC South truly is wide open, especially with the Jags breathing down Indianapolis's neck. What are your thoughts for this one? Do you see the Texans potentially going into Indianapolis and picking up the win, or will the Colts steady the ship?
I think we're going to have an ugly game here in Indianapolis, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Texans can walk away with the win. I'm actually going to lean with a player prop in this one. I'm going back to the well with another quarterback under against this Texans defense. I know I got burned on the final drive last week on Thursday Night Football. Josh Allen just getting over his total thanks to 37 yards on that final drive. But I think Daniel Jones is going to struggle on this one, and I'll be taking his under 224.5 passing yards. So I talked about it on the show last week, but Houston's secondary has just been elite all season. They allow the fewest yards per pass attempt, third fewest passing yards per game, fourth in yards allowed per completion, and they hold opposing quarterbacks to the third lowest completion percentage in the league. So last week was the first time we saw a quarterback go for more than 225 yards against them. I mentioned it again. They've already faced Matt Stafford, Baker Mayfield, Trevor Lawrence twice, Sam Darnold, Bo Nix. The slew of quarterbacks goes on. And honestly, Buffalo and Josh Allen only went over that passing yard total because they were trailing in that game, which that's a whole nother story, the fact they lost that. So I do think that the trends really kind of stand tall here again. And not only that, but Daniel Jones, we saw it a bit in the second half last week in Kansas City. Under pressure, he has been bad this year. His off-target rate jumps up to 25%, and that's going to be a problem against the Texans front that ranks 7th in sacks and is coming off that 8-sack day against Josh Allen. So when everything's said and done, I do think the Texans can pull off an upset. I'm not confident enough just to take them, but I will take Daniel Jones under 224.5 passing yards in this one.
Absolutely love that prop. As you'll see later in this show, I'm a big fan of that prop that you've just gone with. And similarly, I totally agree. I'm going with the Texans plus 4.5 for this one at 10-11. So need to start off by saying I know that they did take the Chiefs to overtime, and you know it could have gone either way, but the wheels are beginning to squeak for the Colts. They have now lost 2 of their last 3, and that the one victory in that spell was also taken to overtime, and a victory over a pretty poor Falcons team. So just start to wonder if Indianapolis is beginning to regress back to the mean. As we've discussed previously, they're only 1 win ahead of the Jaguars and 2 wins ahead of the Texans. So I think that the pressure is really going to start to mount on this Colts team. And it'll be interesting to see just how much they have in them to try and steady the ship. The Texans, we talked about it there. They played last week on Thursday Night Football against the Bills. So they come into this one having added rest, which I think will be a massive benefit for them. And more importantly, their defense. Their defense has allowed more than 19 points only once in the last 5 games. And as you touched on with your prop pick, they've allowed the second fewest passing yards per attempt in the league. So I really think that they're going to keep the Colts in check in this one. I truly believe that they can win this game outright, but I'm going to play it a little safe, and I think getting 4.5 points is great value. So I'm happy to take the Texans plus 4.5 at 10-11. And following that Texans-Colts game, we have another team that played on Thursday Night Football last week as the Bills travelled to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. It was another defeat for the Bills, who just can't find any consistency right now. Luke, what are your thoughts for this one? How's it going to go?
So in this one, I will be taking the over 47.5 at 10 to 11. And there are really matchup edges on both sides that point straight to points. So first off, as you mentioned, the Bills are coming off the loss, but the Steelers are as well. And with playoff implications on the line, this should be an aggressive game script. Buffalo's biggest weakness has been their run defense. They're giving up 5.3 yards per carry, which is 31st in the NFL. In Pittsburgh, although they haven't run the ball well this year, they finally flashed some life last week against a weak Chicago run defense, and they averaged 5.2 yards per carry. So also, the Bills have allowed 21 or more points in 4 straight games, and Pittsburgh has been much livelier offensively at home. They've averaged 25.2 points per game in front of their home fans. And as we mentioned, both teams coming off losses. When they've lost this year, they've scored points early and often. In Buffalo's first 3 defeats, they've averaged 32.7 points per game in the following games. And in the Steelers' 4 losses, they've averaged 26.8 points per game. So that's nearly 30 points per game per team. So I really don't trust either defense right now. I do think Pittsburgh can push Buffalo all night, especially with the way the Pittsburgh defense is set up. They're really good at just getting pressure under center. When you get kind of the edge rushers coming around, they're not that strong that way. And I don't think Buffalo has the players to beat them on the outside that way. That wide receiver core is weak. We obviously saw Brandon Cooks go up to Buffalo this week, signing with him after the Saints let him go. But I don't think that'll be big enough difference for really Buffalo to win this game by, 3.5, 4 points. So
Yep.
I do think Pittsburgh will keep it close. And I'd really be surprised if this game doesn't hit 50 points. If it doesn't hit 50 points, it'll be because both offenses left touchdowns on the field. So give me over 47.5 in Pittsburgh in this one.
Yeah, big fan of that pick as well. And that leads into my own prediction, which is Josh Allen over 235.5 passing yards at 10 to 11. So as we've touched on just there, the Bills are officially in desperation mode. They're now 7-4 and all but out of the division race. But the AFC wildcard race is really starting to heat up. There's a lot of teams that are breathing down the Bills' neck.
Mm-hmm.
One of them being the Steelers. If the Steelers pick up a win here, then that could make Buffalo's task even more difficult. So Buffalo really needs a win here. But luckily for them, as we touched on, like the Texans, they've had a lot of time to prepare for this one, having played on Thursday Night Football last week. And they are facing a Steelers team that has lost 4 of their last 6. Pittsburgh has been known for their robust defense over the years, but they've actually allowed the most passing yards in the NFL this season, 3,054. So I expect that they're going to be very vulnerable against a motivated Josh Allen, who should be locked in for this one. When Josh Allen's motivated and knows he needs to win a game, watch out. And I think that he's going to come into this game and really put on a show as he looks to really drag the Bills back into some semblance of positivity and really maintain their pathway to a wild card. I think the divisional race is pretty much done as far as we're concerned now. So it's all about that wild card positioning as far as Buffalo's concerned. But when you look at this actual number, Josh Allen's actually gone over 235.5 passing yards in each of his last 4 games. You touched on it. They even did it against that rigid Texans defense last week. So I think it's a great opportunity for him to show out and to go over this pretty lackluster number given all of Pittsburgh's struggles. So, and also the fact that we have a very close spread. So if this game does stay close throughout, I think Allen will need to keep airing it out. All things considered, this number is too low for me. So yeah, give me Josh Allen over 235.5 passing yards at 10 to 11. And wrapping up this Sunday's NFL Week 13 slate, we have Sunday Night Football between the Denver Broncos and the Washington Commanders. And stop the press, because I'm picking the Broncos to cover the spread in this one, -6.5 at 10 to 11. So starting off, Jaden Daniels may play as of this time of recording, but even if he does suit up, I still don't think that will be enough to turn the Commanders' fortunes around. Washington has scored just 7, 14, 22, and 13 points in their last 4 games. Broncos defense, meanwhile, has allowed just 24, 15, 7, and 19 points in their last 4 games. So Washington's really struggling to score, and the Denver defense, there's almost nothing more you can say about it anymore. This defense is as legit as it gets. They have by far the most sacks in the NFL. So To be honest, if I'm Dan Quinn and the Commanders, I probably wouldn't want to start Daniels just because of how ferocious this Denver defense has been. And I would be very concerned that we would get even more damage to the quarterback. So regardless of whether it's Daniels or Mariota starting under center, I expect both of them to be running for their lives. What does give me a little pause for concern is that that 6 of the Broncos' last 7 wins have actually been by 4 points or fewer. Hence why I've been a massive doubter in the Broncos, as you know, Luke. But I think that this matchup is perfect for them. I think that they'll suffocate the Commanders' offense. While if you look at the Washington defense, they've allowed by far the most passing yards per attempt in the NFL. So Bo Nix should have some success in moving the chains, and ultimately, I think the Broncos offense should have a fair bit more success than the Commanders offense. So all things considered, I think the Commanders will struggle to score many points at all in this one. So I'm happy to take the Broncos -6.5 at 10-11. What's your best angle for the game?
Yeah, I do think Denver will get the job done, but I expect another ugly game. I'm actually going to take the under 43.5 because everything in this matchup checks the boxes for a low scoring game. So, first off, both teams are coming off a bye with a total over 40. The under has hit 63% of the time when a team's coming off a bye. That's 29, 17, and 1. When you look at non Thursday primetime under since 2019, the under has cashed 61% of the time, includes 60% of the season. So this environment, we've seen a lot of gross Sunday night football games so far. The under has cashed again and again. Now, as you mentioned, if Jaden Daniels can go, we should see a boost in this offense. But honestly, I don't think they'll throw him out there against this Denver defense. And the Washington offense has really fallen apart without him. Over the last 6 weeks, they're bottom 10 in DVOA in both rushing and passing. And now they're facing a Denver defense that ranks top 4 against both the run and the pass. They look like one of the most complete units in football this season and really the last 5-10 years, I'd say. Now, also, I'm not fully convinced about this Broncos offense. They have a 20% success rate on their first 2 drives, which is dead last in the NFL. So even the scripted portion has been sputtering for Bo Nix and company. They're also 8-3 to the under this season, with their games averaging just 40.9 total points. Now, Washington's defense has struggled, but that's mainly come against top 10 offenses. They've given up 36.2 points per game against top 10 offenses, but against everyone else, they're only allowing 19.2. Denver is much closer to the everyone else category than they are a top 10 offense right now. So I would really be surprised if this game gets into the 40s. I think Denver can really just smother them, win this game 24-3, 24-10. I think it's an ugly, ugly football game. So give me the under 43.5 at 10-11 in this one.
Time now to lock in the Punt Team's big game treble, where Luke and I give you a nice free legger to take you right through Sunday's NFL action. And kicking us off, I'm targeting the Texans Colts game, and I am going with the Texans +4.5. So the Colts have certainly started the season off hot, but the wheels are starting to fall off a little bit for Indianapolis. They've lost 2 of their last 3 and were taken to overtime by a pretty weak Falcons team in their only victory in that run. And they're suddenly under a heap of pressure from the Jags and the Texans in the race for the AFC South. So then pivoting to the Texans, and they're coming into this one with added rest after playing on Thursday Night Football last week. And this is a team that's really starting to build momentum and really starting to drive home what was expected of them at the start of the season. Their defense is absolutely legit. They've allowed more than 19 points only once in their last 5 games. And I think that they can give Daniel Jones all that he can handle while also negating the Jonathan Taylor threat. So give me Texans +4.5 at 10-11 to kick us off. What about you, Luke? What are you looking at for Bills versus Steelers?
Yeah, I'm going to add the over 47.5 points to the second leg of this treble. And as we mentioned, Buffalo's weak rush defense is going to get exposed by a Pittsburgh rushing attack that was rejuvenated last week in Chicago. Not only that, but the Bills have allowed 21 or more points in 4 straight games, and Pittsburgh is averaging 25.2 points per game in front of their home fans this season. Both teams are obviously coming off losses, huge playoff implications. I expect both offenses to be humming in this one. In Buffalo's first 3 defeats this season, they've averaged 32.7 points per game in the next follow-up game, while the Steelers, after their first 4 losses this year, they've averaged 26.8 points per game. So getting it at over 47.5 points seems like great value, and I would like it all the way up to 48.5.
Nice. Big fan of that. And then bringing us home, hopefully, on Sunday Night Football, we're going with the Broncos to beat the Commanders. So, as you know, I've been anti Broncos all season, and I do still have some of that sentiment, but I think that this matchup is perfect for them against the Commanders. Washington has really struggled to score in the last few weeks, and the Broncos have been smothering everybody. Jaden
Mhm.
Daniels could return for Washington, but even if he does, I really don't know if it will have that much of a positive effect on this offense that really seems to be just waiting for the season to end at this point. It's been a really down season for Washington, whereas Denver just seems to keep going from strength to strength. They've played a ton of elite QBs and managed to shut down all of them. They've got by far the most sacks in the NFL, so regardless of whether it's Jaden Daniels or Marcus Mariota under center, they're going to be running for their lives in this one. And then on the flip side, Washington's defense has allowed by far the most passing yards per attempt in the NFL. So all things considered, I expect the Broncos to be moving the chains a hell of a lot more than the Commanders. So we'll go with the Broncos to win that matchup straight up. So to recap our big game treble, we've got the Texans plus 4.5. We've got over 47.5 in Bills versus Steelers, and we have the Broncos to beat the Commanders. That comes in at just under 4-1. And now time to dive into the Punt Team player prop double, where Luke and I give you our best NFL player prop bets from the Week 13 slate. And kicking us off, it might be something that you've heard already, but much like you, Luke, when we previewed the game itself, I'm going with Daniel Jones under 224.5 passing yards at 10-11. And a lot of my analysis mirrors what you've already said. So the Texans have allowed the second fewest passing yards per attempt and the third fewest passing yards in the NFL overall. Only 10 passing touchdowns allowed while recording 12 interceptions. This team is absolutely lights out when it comes to the passing game. Daniel Jones admittedly is over this number in 4 of his last 5 games, but was just held to 181 passing yards against the Chiefs, and he really was starting to show nerves during that Chiefs comeback. And we all know what Danny Dimes was like for the Giants, and this has been a nice feel good comeback story for him. But I think that nervous QB is still in there somewhere, and I think that he's going to be given all that he can handle against the Texans. Also touching on the fact that 9 of the last 10 starting QBs to face the Texans have gone under this number, and it was only Josh Allen who's gone over it, and that happened last Thursday on last Thursday Night Football. Indiana Jones has been decent, but he ain't no Josh Allen, so give me Daniel Jones under 224.5 passing yards at 10-11. What's your best prop bet?
Yeah, and I'm going to make all the viewers wait until Monday Night Football for my Patriots to take on the Giants. I'll be taking Travion Henderson over 65.5 rushing yards because this matchup is really built for a heavy run game. I mean, we just saw the Giants get shredded for 237 rushing yards by the Lions last week, and they've now allowed 80 or more rushing yards to 9 different running backs this season. This run defense is the worst in football. They're giving up 5.9 yards per carry in allowing 157.2 rushing yards per game. At that rate, Henderson could clear this number in just 12 carries. Now, the workload has been there. Over the last 4 weeks, he's averaging 16.3 carries per game, and even with Ramondre Stevenson back in the lineup last week, he logged 18 carries. So Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels really believe in this rookie. They know that even Stevenson, he's kind of the 1B, I'd say, right now. So I expect Henderson to be the workhorse for us again on Monday night. So I am slightly worried about the Patriots' offensive line. Obviously, Will Campbell and Jared Wilson went down against the Bengals this past week. They are expected to miss this game. But to me, that actually leans towards a run-heavy game plan. So with Drake May, he's been great downfield, but I don't expect him to have as much time with this potent Giants pass rush. So I do think that they'll look to give the ball to Henderson early and often and set up the play action more often than not. Not only that, but the Patriots are 7.5-point favorites in this game, so they should be playing from ahead, which caters even more to second half rushing volume. And much of you know, Wilsh, but we are heading into true New England football weather. Looking at this game, extended forecasts are calling for a wintry mix. Temperatures in the real feel of the mid 20s, and wind gusts could be around 20 miles per hour.
No.
If the wind becomes a factor, Henderson's workload should only increase. So if this weather line hits as expected, Henderson may clear this line in the first half. Give me Henderson over 65.5 rushing yards in Monday Night Football.
those New England conditions almost take me back to. Do you remember when I think it was Mac Jones under center, where I think he attempted three passes the entire game? So
Yep,
yeah, if
against
we
the
see,
Bills.
see if we see a game similar to that, then yeah, I would be amazed if Henderson didn't go over this number. So yeah, big fan of that play. So there you go. The punt team player prop double for this week. We've got Daniel Jones under 224.5 passing yards and Travion Henderson over 65.5 rushing yards. That comes in at 2.64 to 1. It's time to shoot for the moon as we give you the punt team mega money line acca, where Luke and I give you our pick on the money line for every game on Sunday. So Luke, we're going to kick things off with you. Who's going to win, Cardinals or Buccaneers?
I hope Baker plays, but I'll take the Buccaneers either way.
And how about Falcons, Jets?
My apologies, Falcons.
Love it. Texans or Colts?
Colts.
Jags, Titans?
Give me the Jags.
Rams, Panthers?
I'll take the Rams.
Saints or Dolphins?
And the Dolphins. Now, I'll pass it over to you. 49ers or the Browns?
I'll take the 49ers.
Okay, Vikings or Seahawks?
Got to be the Seahawks.
Bills or Steelers?
Josh Allen's going to lead them to glory. Give me the Bills.
Okay, Raiders or Chargers?
We'll take the Chargers.
And then close it out, Broncos or Commanders?
Broncos, not even close.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. 11 games, 11 picks. That comes in at around 42 to 1. There's a lot of big favourites this week, but all with good reason, I believe. So there you go. Best of luck. And now closing out this week's episode of the Punt Team, we're getting into our Punt Team NFL Best Bets, where Luke and I give you our best bet of the entire week. And it was another win for myself as the Falcons plus 1.5 gave us an easy cash. So Luke, I'm now leading you 7-5 in the running.
Yeah, it was rough last week. I need Jameis Winston throwing for 366 yards in that Lions defense. I did not have that on my bingo card. And even more so, catching a touchdown. So Giants pull out all the tricks, but still somehow lost, but they did cover. So that hurt me with my best bet on the Lions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We'll see if you can get back on the horse this week. But for myself, I'm going with the 49ers minus 5.5 at 10-11 as my best bet from Sunday slate. So admittedly, full disclosure, one of my betting rules typically is do not bet against the Browns when they're at home. But sometimes you have to break these rules because for me, this line looks way too low. When the lines came out, I expected the 49ers to be around 8.5 point favorites. And again, part of that was based on how good they looked on Monday Night Football against the Panthers. 49ers are now 8-4 despite having all of that laundry list of injuries, and their offense is finally getting healthy. Purdy clearly still has a lot of question marks. He threw 3 interceptions, but as long as this team has McCaffrey and Kill, I believe that they should be able to move the ball even against this rigid Browns defense. Cleveland did well last week in Shadur Sanders' full debut, but let's be honest, that was against the Raiders, and the 49ers are a totally different beast. So I'm expecting Robert Saleh to be salivating at the chance to shut down Sanders, who did have some good plays last week, but still looked wildly inconsistent as far as I can see. And in terms of like the run game, the 49ers are allowing the 6th fewest rushing touchdowns. So I think that Cleveland's really going to be struggling to move the ball both through the air and on the ground. And the 49ers have been dominating teams when they've been winning. Each of their last 4 victories have been by at least 10 points. And as I touched on, this offense really is starting to click. I think that they're going to be able to move the chains at will, and I really doubt that the Browns can keep up. So I'll happily take the 49ers minus 5.5 at 10-11. What's your best bet, Luke?
So I'm going with another big favorite this week, and I'm going to take the Los Angeles Chargers minus 10.5. Really, the Chargers are coming off a bye, and the setup could not be better for Jim Harbaugh's team. They covered last year coming off the bye against Denver, and after getting embarrassed 35-6 by Jacksonville in Week 11, I have to feel like he's going to have his team locked in, especially in the midst of a playoff race like they are in the AFC. So their last 2 home games, they've won by 17 and 15 over the Vikings and Steelers, and they already handled the Raiders earlier this season, beating them by 11 on the road. Meanwhile, Las Vegas feels like they're in full free fall right now. They just fired offensive coordinator Chip Kelly after their Week 12 loss to the Browns last week, and their average loss margin this season has been by 14.3 points. They're 0-3 against the AFC West, and including that loss to the Chargers earlier this year, they've lost 31-0 at Kansas City as well. So the biggest issue for Las Vegas is that they rank 30th in offensive DVOA, and they sit dead last with the Saints in scoring offense at 15 points per game. The Chargers, even though they failed to score a touchdown against Jacksonville, they had 24 points or more in 5 straight games leading up to that loss, and it's hard to imagine that this Raiders offense can keep up with Justin Herbert and company. The Raiders have scored 16 or fewer points in 4 of their last 5, and Geno Smith was picked off 3 times when they met the Chargers earlier this season. So I don't think it'll get any prettier for Las Vegas. I do expect the Chargers to bounce back after that ugly loss and stay in that wild card contention. So give me the Chargers minus 9.5 against the Raiders this Sunday.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Genuinely, coming into this season, I thought that the Raiders were going to be fairly decent, and they just hasn't materialized at all. It makes that week 1 Raiders being the Patriots result even more crazy to look back on now when you see how where both teams have gone since then. But yeah, unbelievable. So there you go. Our NFL best bets for this week. I'm going with the 49ers minus 5.5 at 10-11. And Luke is going with the Chargers minus 9.5 at 10-11. Make sure that you comment to let us know if you agree with mine and Luke's best bets, and also tell us your best bets for this Sunday slate. And so that does it for another great week of NFL action. It's sure to be another tremendous week of football. We've got Thanksgiving games, we've got Black Friday games, we've got a mega slate on Sunday, we've got Monday Night Football. This is the time when the NFL really starts to tick up, when games matter more as we head into the playoffs, and we are here for it. So get excited, folks. Happy Turkey Day, and we hope that you have a great week punting on the NFL. So from Luke and myself, if you're ever in a 4th and 11 situation on your own 6-yard line, make sure you send for the Punt Team. Thank you very much.